Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome to the Optimum Ideation Podcast. Today's guest is pretty awesome lady, Miss Beverly Lawrence, with the Dancing Bear Enlightenment Academy and Healing Center. Let's go into this. I usually just dive right into some questions. So,
Cool.
what's your story, your resume, and how did you get to here?
Well, wow. And that's a really long story. It would take a couple weeks just to tell. I'm writing a book.
This is usually the longer question of
Yeah.
them all.
Well, we'll back up a little bit and we'll summarize because I've been through many, many transformations. And, I'm a 5 life path in numerology. And if you look at my astrology chart, it's all in there that I will do what I've been doing. But I, I've been able to see through the veil since I was a child, but because of something, I had a very difficult childhood. Something happened to me at 12, it don't matter what. And I basically turned off all my feelings and became very angry. But I was raised in a religion that you go to church a lot, several times a week, many times on Sunday. And I noticed that, and I was a reader. I've always been a reader. And the preacher would take one sentence out of the Bible and then tell you what it meant. And I thought, well, I can read. I was a teen. I was about 14 when this happened. I thought, why don't people read this book like a book?
Right.
Why do they take everything out of context and someone has to tell you what it means?
Yeah.
And this is before the internet and stuff, and before the International Bible was made, and before the history of the Bible was really well known. And the only way you could get any information was to go to a preacher or a priest or whatever. So I read the Bible. I mean, every begot, in Genesis, the whole thing all the way through. And, my mother made me memorize the names of the books of the Bible in order. I mean, we were Bible thumpers.
Yeah.
And so I knew a lot about it, and I read it from cover to cover and immediately became an atheist. I realized angels weren't angels. These are either aliens or interdimensional beings because I could see them. That it was full of lies. It was full of, the Old Testament and the New Testament is two different books. I mean, two different gods, if you will. It just didn't make any sense to me. And then I was made a lot of promises, which I kept my end of the deal. My parents didn't keep their end of the deal. So as soon as I was old enough, I left home. I left home really angry. Spent the first year thinking about suicide. Finally, one day, someone looked at me and said, "Why do you have such black around your eyes?" I use this heavy eye makeup. It was kind of Egyptian style.
Yeah.
And I went home and looked in the mirror and I went, I don't know. And that sort of snapped me out of it.
Yeah.
But here I am, this angry person with no purpose, an atheist, lost, know that I can see things, I can see through things.
Yeah.
So I know that everything we're being told is a lie and no one is giving me any input and helping me. I ended up getting married to another a man who was also very angry. We were okay, narcissistic, angry people with no
Wow.
purpose.
Yeah.
But what happened is I started to grow up.
Yeah.
I'm working in corporate America, and people are saying, we want you to become a manager. And I thought, well, I better go back to school. I had an associate degree in computer science. I thought, I better go back to school. But I was already teaching computer classes. I didn't need a bachelor's in computers, but I had no people skills. I grew up without people skills. So
Yeah.
my bachelor's was organizational behavior and human relations.
Yeah.
Learned how to talk to people and how to at least hide all this anger. I didn't heal the anger, but I hid it. Now all
Yeah.
of a sudden, I'm not getting along with my husband. We're not a match anymore.
Yeah.
Finally, I got divorced, and I was getting sick before I got divorced, but then I was getting really sick. I'm going into anaphylactic shock several times a week. I'm in the emergency room. I'm rescued off Mission Peak by helicopter. I'm rescued off Angel Island by a ranger boat, because I was always hiking on the weekends. I was
Yeah.
always out in nature and doing things. And I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And the emergency room doc said, you cannot go into nature. You cannot be more than 5 minutes from a hospital if you want to live. And by
Wow.
then, I've had 5 near-death experiences.
Yeah.
Well, by then I had 4, because I hadn't studied shamanism yet. And so I said, well, I've been to many, many doctors. No one can help me. He said, go to an allergist. I said, okay. So I looked up who's the best allergist in the Bay Area. And there's a lot of really good doctors in the Bay Area because of all the medical hospitals. So I went to her. She spent an hour with me. And after an hour, she looked me in the eye and she said, I can't help you. I'm going, what?
Yeah.
So I had this doctor that I knew. He was a gynecologist. I didn't need a gynecologist anymore because I'd had a hysterectomy, but he was an older doctor and I respected him and he was smart. And I thought, I'll go see him. Maybe he'll know what to do. And he told me, meditate. He just told an atheist to meditate. He's like, what? Meditate?
Yeah.
Okay. But I was desperate.
Yeah.
So I thought, I've got nothing to lose. So, back then you didn't have an internet. So I asked around work. Someone had a book. I read a book on meditation, and he told me about this TM center, and I went there. I learned to meditate. They said after 2 weeks this will happen. After 2 years this will happen. 2 months this will happen. After 2 years this will happen. If you're really lucky, in 10 years this might happen.
Yeah.
2 weeks, I'm at 2 months. At 2 months, I'm at 2 years. And
Yeah.
in about 4 months, I am way beyond 10 years. I'm remembering my past lives.
Wow.
I know my sole purpose. I know why I'm here. And I know I was supposed to get divorced 10 years earlier and I was bound. Well, what happens? I get promoted at work. Now I have money. I just start taking all these courses and studying and traveling. I've been to Glastonbury, England. I went to Nepal on retreat. I studied with 2 living Buddhas. I've studied with a Taoist master, been through 4 mystery schools. After 5 years, I realized I'd caught up.
Yeah.
I spent 3 years in a residential shamanic training program. And I was really unhealthy. I had cancer, I had fibromyalgia, I had leaky gut. I no longer made melatonin, so I had chronic insomnia. I don't remember everything that was wrong. What else? I had a whole 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper of everything that was
Oh.
wrong. All this medicine I was taking that wasn't working,
Yeah.
and I was addicted to a diet soda. I won't name it.
Yeah.
And every time I tried to quit, I got sick, horrible
Wow.
migraines, sick and just awful. So I thought, I started meditating. I have to back up a little because we went past that part.
Yeah.
But I started meditating, and 2 weeks after I started meditating, I realized I hadn't had a diet soda. I had such an addiction to diet soda, I couldn't deal with the cans. I actually had a soda making machine in my house,
Oh, wow.
and I would make my own soda.
Yeah.
That way I didn't have to deal with the cans. And so I went and made a soda, took 1 drink and spit it out in the sink.
Yeah.
And I went, oh my God, this is horrible shit.
Yeah.
And then I got rid of the soda machine and all of that stuff. And I just started healing and getting better. I started getting messages, go see this doctor, go see that doctor, do this. All of a sudden I start healing. Then I knew I had cancer. I could feel the pain in my chest and I had a
Wow.
sore on my breast, but I didn't want to go to the doctor because, it's the big C,
Yeah.
and I hadn't been to medical school yet. And finally, the pain got so bad, I thought, well, I got to go to the doctor. So I go to the doctor. He says, I have to send you to a specialist. So I made the appointment. I went home and I did a shamanic journey crying, begging my spirit helpers. In comes Raphael and 3 angels. They work on me. I pass out. I wake up hours later. And the first thing I notice is there's no pain.
Wow.
And I look at my chest, and this pink thing I had on my chest was now orange.
Hmm.
And when I went to the specialist, he looked at me, he says, I don't understand this. This is the
Yeah.
kind of cancer you have. And he points at a chart and he says, but it looks like it's going away.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it's not gone in 2 weeks, come back. And it did, it went away.
Yeah.
And so I just went on this massive healing journey. People at work saw me changing because I was, when you're that sick, everybody around you knows you're sick.
Yeah.
And they saw me changing, and all of a sudden I wasn't sick anymore. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's like, what's going on with Beverly? And they said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm certified in this and certified in that. Because, you take so many classes, you end up being certified. I was just doing it to heal myself.
Right.
But, all of a sudden I had all these certifications. I was now a medical hypnotherapist, and I was a Reiki master, and I was a shamanic practitioner. And, just all of that. I worked with crystals and oils and all kinds of stuff.
Awesome.
And I said, well, this is what I learned. And they said, well, will you help me?
Yeah.
I went, well, sure. So they'd come to my house. They were friends, and then more friends, and then friends of friends, and then friends of friends of friends.
Yeah.
And one day a woman calls, and I said, I didn't know her, never heard of her. I said, who referred you? We went back 6 people that had referred me to her, and I didn't know any of them.
Wow.
And she goes, what do you charge? Well, I don't charge. I mean, I was just I had a job, just
Yeah.
doing this to help people.
Yeah.
He handed me money and said, you're really good, you should charge. Well, I didn't want strangers coming to my house.
Right.
I opened an office. So in the evenings and weekends, I did healing. And I was renting an office from a chiropractor. And she was an MD from Russia, but she came to the US and became a chiropractor. And she did cupping and homeopathy and all kinds of stuff that she learned in Russia. And I wanted to learn some of what she did. And she told me I would be a great acupuncturist. Well, I'm blonophobic. That's fear of needles. It's like, this was a long time ago. Acupuncture is more accepted today. Back then,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, only the Chinese do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but I wanted to learn homeopathy. So I decided to go. This is when I moved from California to Arizona to go to naturopathic medical school here in Arizona. And while I was there, I took an acupuncture class and fell in love with it.
Wow.
Acupuncture needles are not syringes. It's totally different, and it's really easy to needle. And you should have seen me. The teacher
Yeah.
gave us a pack of needles. She says, go home and needle yourself.
Oh.
Home, and I'm like this. Put
Yeah.
that needle in. And I went, oh, I couldn't feel it. Once you do the first one and you start learning on yourself, and then you learn on other students before you get the chance to needle other people, which are also other students. And then eventually you get to graduate. So I liked the acupuncture school program better than the naturopathic school. So I switched from naturopathic medicine to acupuncture. So I'm a licensed acupuncture. I had a practice for a long time in Chandler. And just before COVID hit, the week before COVID hit,
Yeah.
I fell and I broke both the tibia and fibula at my ankle.
Oh.
So 4 days in the hospital, 21 days in rehab.
Oh.
I'm in a wheelchair. I can't
Yeah.
walk. My practice is shut down.
Oh.
I'm doing physical therapy to learn how to, still have muscles, even though you're in a wheelchair, you have to still exercise. But I healed myself really, really fast. I wasn't supposed to be able to get out of the wheelchair till November, but I hurt myself in March. In June, I was in a non-load bearing cast, and they were going to put a walking cast on. When he took the cast off, he said, I don't understand this. You're completely healed.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
don't know how to heal myself.
Yeah.
So I was completely healed. So I thought, well, I can reopen my practice. Well, I reopened my practice, but I was almost the only business left in the complex. So the owner of the complex decided to shut it down.
Oh.
So after being open for a month, we shut down everybody. There was only
Damn.
2 of us left. Me and
Oh
a
no.
little insurance business. So I did a meditation, and I was told, move to Cottonwood. Well, Cottonwood's a little tiny town of 12,000 people. I barely knew where it was. But and you want me to sell my house in the middle of COVID? And they said, yeah. I said, okay, my house sold like that.
Yeah.
I lived with a naturopathic doctor friend while I looked for a house in Cottonwood. I found the house I wanted, but my money from the sale of my house wasn't in the bank yet. So someone else bought it out from under me.
Oh,
So I'm looking at other houses and going around looking at other houses, making offers. They're all falling through. Finally, the house I really wanted, the people who put an offer on, it fell through. And by then my money was in the bank and I got the house.
yeah.
So it's like when you listen to source and you do what you're told, it all works out. Well, the naturopathic doctor I was staying with had an app, and she got me connected with this guy that makes apps. So I bought their app. And through him, I met a guy named Amana Guy who taught you how to teach classes online. I've been teaching classes for decades. So I did his program, put my classes online.
Cool.
And then I was told, well, now you have to build an email list. You need a podcast and do summits. So I started my podcast
Yeah.
and I started doing summits.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah. 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 That's where we met. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's great. So, people get where they want to go in life because they know where they want to go. So, where do you ultimately want to go?
Well, I'm in the process of reopening my practice. I looked for an office for 2 years. It's a small town. There isn't much here.
Yeah.
And I realized the front of my house has a bedroom that's a guest bedroom and a bathroom next to it and a front door, and I can block off the whole rest of the house. And I went, you know what? I only work part-time anyway. So I have a screen on order. It's coming. I've just got a business license for my healing center, and
Good.
I'm trying to sell the guest bed that I bought.
Yeah.
And that's going to be my treatment room. And there's a
Perfect.
bathroom right next door. I did find one office, but there was no bathroom. You've got to have a bathroom and a sink,
Yeah.
and it's got to have a ramp. I don't have a ramp, but I'll only see one person at a time. So I'll be able to start seeing patients again,
Good.
which is what I enjoy. And then I couldn't figure out, I like to teach my classes in person. How am I going to do that?
Yeah.
Then I met through my summit, I interviewed a woman who she lives in Mexico, but she does retreats for people like me.
Yeah.
And I told her I can't ever afford to do a retreat. And she says, sure, you just use Airbnb. I
Yeah.
went, oh, wow, I'll
Yeah.
just rent a house for a weekend. I like small classes anyway. People can
Yeah.
come up, and I'm right next to Sedona, so they can visit Sedona. So
Perfect.
it's like everything that I need is just coming right to me, and I don't have to work full time anymore,
Yeah.
because I downsized my house so I don't have to pay rent. So
Perfect.
I'm just, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's just all these, you already have everything you need to win. It's
Mhm.
just what are those little things, those little layers that we got to peel back and grab that info. So, you know, you spoke a lot about, the trials and tribulations that you've been through. But what what layers did you have to reveal to become who you are?
Well, one, I had to deal with the anger.
Yes.
And anger masks all your other feelings. And one of the things that happened to me was I was at a psychic fair when I first woke up, and I didn't know what a chakra was or anything. And
Yeah.
this woman said, you know, the chakras on your back are shut down. Well, I didn't even know you had chakras on your back. I didn't know what chakras looked like. She says, do you mind if I turn them on? I said, well, sure. So she did whatever she did. And my heart chakra, I could feel flopping around on my back for the next 2 weeks.
Wow.
It was unbelievable before it finally settled down. So my heart was totally shut down.
Yeah.
I wasn't in my body. I spent one whole year focusing on being grounded. And today I meet people who say, I don't know how to ground. How do I ground? What do I do? I took a number of classes. How do you ground? How do you get in your body? How do you stay in your body? Now, when I look at my patients, I look at them, I look, is there a soul in their body? How much is in the body? Because you can't heal if they're not in the body.
Yeah.
The first thing you have to do is get them in their body. And so that was the first major step, was getting in my body, opening my heart, dealing with anger. Like I said, I spent another whole year just on anger.
Yeah.
I used a lot of what do you call them? Bach flower essences to deal with the emotions. I learned how to go through emotions, when you're feeling them, because
Yeah.
I just know how to deal with emotions.
Yeah.
I didn't have any. They were turned off when I was 12. So I
Yeah.
went through high school not knowing anything. I spent 4 years with a psychotherapist who taught me feelings,
Yeah.
because I didn't know. He said, well, remember when this happened to you? Yeah. He says, what sensations did you have in your body? So I'd go back, well, I felt this and this. He'd say, okay, that's sadness or that's anger or that.
Yeah.
And he literally had to teach me. So here I am. I'm in my 40s. I feel like I'm in high school,
Yeah.
when your hormones are raging and you have all these
Yeah.
feelings, you don't know what to do with them. That's what I felt like. And here I am, this adult woman who has a
Yeah.
daughter and an ex-husband, and I'm
Yeah.
just now dealing with feelings. After 4 years of that, I realized that there was something missing. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that there was something he didn't teach me that I needed to learn.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine had worked with what's known as a regression therapist, and he was a prenatal regression therapist. So I went to him, and we literally rescripted my life from conception to that point in my life.
Yeah.
And one of the things that happened was he told me, call in all the people that love you. Well, I could see all kinds of people and beings around me, but they weren't close. I was here and they were over there. I said, well, there's nobody that loves me. That's when I realized I'd never felt love.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean people didn't love me. It just
Right.
means I couldn't feel it. It was one of and my psychotherapist didn't teach me that. Well, people have the bad habit of falling in love with their psychotherapist. So that might be why he left it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I teach her love, she'll fall for me. But so what happened was I was terrified to allow anyone to send me love.
Yeah.
And so he suggested I call in my solar angel. So we all have a higher self, solar angel, whatever you want to call it. So I called her in and she's, will you allow me to send you love? I don't know if I could say this because it's even today, it's so emotional.
It's okay.
And I said, yes, you can give me love. And it was just this overwhelming pure love. And if you've never felt that, you have to call in your solar angel and feel it, because it's just unreal. And I went outside, and that was the first time I could see through everything. Everything is,
Yeah.
everybody says everything is light. Well, when you have a near death experience and everything turns to light and you go
Yes.
into the tunnel, that's what happened. But I was awake and not near death. And I looked around and I could see through things. I could see the light. And then I got in my car and I looked in my rearview mirror and I could see my solar angel in the mirror.
Wow.
She was right there, pink, which is very healing color. And there she was right there
Wow.
with me. So that obviously that was a major transition for me to finally feel love. Then when I went back another time and he says, now call in everyone that loved you. Now I could feel the love. And what we had to do is, my parents, when I look at how they were raised, they did their
Yeah.
best. Okay. It
Exactly.
might have been a horrible childhood, but it
Yeah.
was worse. So what I did was I set up a screen that filtered out all their negative energy so that I could feel their love and let the
Yeah.
love come through.
Yeah.
And I don't know if your audience knows what cords are, but they kept cording me, which is very, very unhealthy.
Yeah.
A parent needs to cord their child because they need that cord to survive, to grow up. But
Exactly.
once your kid grows up, you need to stop cording them.
Exactly.
So I had to create an obelisk and let them cord the obelisk so they're not courting me.
Wow.
so that I could separate myself and finally be who I am as a person without having my energy drained.
Wow.
Um, and of course, whenever I was around them, there was just fighting and yelling. It was just, even as an adult, it was just horrible.
Right.
And I decided I couldn't be near them anymore. My sister almost committed suicide.
Yeah.
And she had called my mother, and my mother told her, I don't have anything for you. I can't help you. I have nothing for you. And then my sister tried to commit suicide. Luckily, her husband came home and found her.
Wow.
And the doctor, he was going to leave her, and then he changed his mind and went back. And the doctor told him, you have to sit next to her and talk to her, and saved her life. I talked to her later, and I was really upset with my mom. So I called her on the phone, and she wouldn't talk about it. I said, do you know you almost killed your own daughter? No, 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 no. I got so angry, I hung up on her.
Yeah.
And then she called back, and she still wouldn't talk about it, so I hung up on her. Then my dad calls, he's yelling at me, and I'm not going to let anybody yell at me on the phone. If you're going to yell at me, you're done. I hung up.
Yeah.
So then he wrote a tight 2-page typed letter and CC'd the whole family, how what a terrible person I am, how horrible I am, blah, blah, blah. They took no responsibility for
Yeah.
almost killing one of their children. And I said, okay, I can never talk to them again. I cannot deal with this. So I didn't respond. So he sent out another 2-page typed letter and
Wow.
CC'd everybody about what a bad person I am. I thought, okay, fine. That's who they are. I'm done with them. I'm not going to talk to them again. I'm going to go work on Beverly. And I got certified in handwriting analysis. And because I'd been doing handwriting analysis, for decades, but I never had a teacher. And I finally found a teacher I liked. And I analyzed my own handwriting. I learned all kinds of interesting stuff about
Yeah.
myself. And the teacher kept trying to push my buttons, but it didn't work. And at the end of the class, people were asking each other, what are you going to do next? And I says, well, I'm going to study NLP and become a hypnotherapist. And because I want to learn how to deal with really difficult people. And they said, Beverly, you already know how to do that. I said, what are you talking about? They said, I'm not going to say her name, but anyway, the teacher has been trying to push your buttons since the beginning of the class, and you have diffused it every single time. And when I meditated on it, I realized she was a combination of my mom and dad rolled up into one.
Wow.
And right after that, it was it was Mother's Day, and my power animals came to me, and they said, you have to call your mother or we will not work with you again. Well, when you do shamanic work, your animals tell you they're not going to work with you. You do what they say. So I
Yeah.
said, okay, well, I don't want to do it. And there's a whole long story. We won't go into it. But I called. She wasn't there. I left a message. She called back. I wasn't there. She left a message. I knew it was okay. So I called her, and everything had changed. The only person who changed was me, but my relationship had suddenly changed. Everything was fine. And she no longer pushed my buttons. She couldn't, because it just didn't happen anymore. I guess I'd healed all these hot buttons that I had from when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And 2 months later, I get a call from my brother. She's in the hospital. I said, oh, she's going to die. He said, no, she's not. I said, yeah, she is. I called my daughter. I said, we got to go see grandma. And she died 2 months later. Um, and I'd called my father on Father's Day. Everything was fine with him. One of the things that he used to do to me was he would say, he would yell at me, you gave your mother a breast infection when you were a baby, when she was breastfeeding you. Now, that's stupid.
Yeah. Going
You're
a
a
little bit
kid,
far
someone
back
tells you
there.
that, you get triggered. Instead, I'd moved past that, and I just laughed, and I said, Dad, I was an infant. What's the matter with you? You know, so he couldn't trigger me anymore. And that changed my relationship, changed my relationship with the whole family, with everybody. When you work on yourself and you deal with your own triggers, it actually heals the family.
Yeah. I
And so
agree.
that was some of the big things for me that by overcoming my own stuff, if you will,
Yeah.
it helped everyone around me. It helped
Yeah.
all my relationships, not just my family relationships.
Well, that's why it's so powerful what you do now for others is because you're allowing them to help their families. And that's why, you know, I see these things in people and I see what you're doing. And so that's why I give you a stage, is because what you're doing helps many, and sharing these messages that not a lot of people will have the strength to talk about. However, a lot of people are going through these same things and they don't have the strength, or the willpower, or the defeating of ego enough to discuss these things that we're talking about right now. And so, but how can they ever get to that point without people like us talking about these difficult
Yeah.
discussions?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, there are initiations, spiritual initiations we go through for each of the chakra centers. And in my programs, I only taught the first 4 initiations for the first 4 chakras because, well, number one, I didn't meet people that were ready for the last 3 initiations.
yeah,
We're still working on 1 through 4. But I'm now going to be teaching all 7 because I think people are ready for all 7. But I'm going to say something and it comes in my head and it goes out, and it comes in my head and it goes out. Um, so when I think of it, I'll tell you. It comes back in my head again. But um, understanding that you have to heal all aspects of yourself, and it has to be spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. And I always say, as above, so below. Now, and I say soul, mind, body. Most people go body, mind, soul, and they do yoga and they work on the body, and then they work maybe on the emotions and then the mind. And I try to teach people start at the spiritual level, because if you start up here, which is where I started, and work down, it ripples down and
yeah,
it ripples out. You can heal more faster by working at the soul level.
yeah,
But to get the soul level, you have to know, where is your heart? Where is your soul in your body? If you're not in your body, your soul's not in your body. So you have to tune into your body. Where is your soul? And most people, their soul is below their heart. Well, you're not ready for anything above the heart then. And one of the things, now I remember, one of the initiations, the third initiation, is death of the ego. And people will go through it and not realize what it is. But when you've been through it as many times as I have for a while, you're not afraid of anything.
yeah,
Oh, the other thing I wanted to say, you mentioned resilience, and my dad's gone, but at a soul level, I have thanked him many times for some of the abuse I went through,
yeah,
because it gave me resilience.
yeah,
One of the things that he and I started arguing when I was 3. I remember back to when I was 3, but I remembered my values, and my values and the church I was raised in were different. Why I didn't agree. I didn't like, I mean, he was prejudiced. He hated all kinds of, he hated Germans and Catholics and anybody with any kind of color. And, he was just so prejudiced, and I wasn't.
yeah,
And I disagree. We fought about that all the time. But
right,
he would always say, think for yourself, think for yourself. What he meant was, do what I say, think the way I teach you.
yeah,
That's what he meant, but that's not what I got. It was, think for yourself, so I always did. And missing today is people don't have critical thinking.
yeah,
They don't think for themselves. They listen to that's the shiny object syndrome. Somebody said, it must be, think about what they said. I'd take classes and people would use words and I'd think, I wonder what that means. And I'd look it up and they misuse it. I took a class this weekend and she was talking about astrology and she just totally blew it. She says, I'm not an astrologer. I says, yeah, I could tell that. The rest of the class was awesome, but she should not have used astrology examples because she didn't know what she was talking about.
Yeah.
And so I find that in a lot of teachers, you cannot just believe everything people say. Even me, I tell people, look it up, and I give people resources. I say, here's the references, look it up yourself, make your own opinion based on your own belief system. I don't try to change anyone's belief system. If
Yes.
you have a religion, cool, follow it. There's a
Exactly.
good thing in every religion. I don't care what you believe. Change my words. If you listen to my live guided meditations, I will tell you, you substitute whatever word you use for this. You know, some people like the word God, some say divine, some
Yeah.
say source, some say, you know,
Yeah.
whatever, Yahweh, whatever. Substitute my word for the one you want.
Yeah.
Stay in your belief system and live it. One of the rabbis, when I studied the Kabbalah, I studied it several times from different sources. And the first one, who was the best I studied with, said it's better to dig one deep hole than many shallow holes. I have dug many deep holes. And let me tell you, it doesn't matter which path you take, they all end up in the same place. I call it the subterranean river of truth. And it doesn't matter what river, what word you use, it doesn't matter what you
Yeah.
believe, it doesn't matter if you're religious or not. You can be an atheist and still get there.
Yeah.
So love everybody no matter what they believe. It's okay because they incarnated in that belief system. And believe it or not, each religion opens up a different chakra center. And we reincarnate into different cultures on purpose to open that chakra center. So
Yeah.
that's the path they're on. Honor their path. That's
Yeah.
why they're here, to open that chakra center. Guess which chakra Christians need to open?
Ooh, I don't know. Throat or what do you, what is it?
Heart.
The heart? You think so?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For the Jews, it's the third chakra. Christians, it's the fourth chakra. The Muslim, it's the fifth chakra. For the Buddhists, it's the sixth chakra. And for the Hindus, it's the seventh chakra.
Oh my.
Some of the more indigenous religions, it's first and second chakra.
Wow. Wow. That's pretty awesome. Yeah. I mean, I've studied, I've studied almost every single religion that is well
Mhm.
known. And so to get to this point where I am, I've been much on a journey such as yourself. So,
Well,
but
they
it's
all
just,
have spiritual aspects that are worth learning and doing. You know,
yes.
all of it, every single one of them. There's nothing there. Whenever you hear about people saying, oh, it's okay to kill someone, it's not okay to kill ever.
Yeah.
It's not okay not to honor someone else's belief. That's the only aspect of religions. There is a thing called natural law. And part of natural law is you don't kill. So that's an aspect you have to say, okay, I have my religious belief, but natural law from whatever you want to call that higher power, natural law comes from that higher power. And that overrides any aspect of religion.
Now, we spoke on several of these things, but when did you become passionate about your focus now?
My focus.
Yeah, your academy, your your healing center. When did you become passionate about creating all of this?
Well, that was when I wanted to study homeopathy. So I came here to go to medical school, and then I fell in love with acupuncture. And um, I knew a story about an acupuncturist who died at age 98, and he was still treating people.
Yeah,
And when my dad retired, he sat around and watched TV.
yeah,
Well, I grew up without TV, so I'm not used to TV. So I don't even own a television. I had one because I like movies. They broke it in the move. I've never replaced it because I don't subscribe to anything, you know,
yeah,
why would I? So sitting around and watching TV, that would be boring anyway.
yeah.
I do like a garden, so I have a hydroponic garden in the house.
Cool.
But you know, okay, it takes me a few minutes a day to do the garden. I have a dog. It takes me a few minutes a day to take care of him, and then I go for a walk, which is my exercise. That's not a life. I have to have a purpose,
Yeah,
and I want to help others. And I've learned a few things along the way,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, and so I thought, well, if if you learn something, learning something is useless unless you make it into wisdom. And if you have wisdom and don't share it, that's almost a sin.
Yeah.
So I've learned a lot. I do have some wisdom and I need to share that. And so my way of sharing it, one, is people like to take my classes. And two, I really enjoy seeing people heal. I had a woman come to me. She said, I have been in pain for 30 years. I have been to every kind of doctor you can think of. I'm desperate. I says, well, let's see what we can do. I treated her. She got up off the table, jumping up and down, saying, I am not in pain for the first time in 30 years. I mean,
Wow.
how cool is that? I
Yeah.
mean, isn't that a cool job?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't
Dream
get any
job.
better than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why it's my passion.
Perfect.
And
Perfect.
when you teach a class and you see people transform and they go, oh my God, now I understand why I'm here with my mother. Now I understand why this happened. Now, because I take people through exercises that help them find aspects of themselves that they need to heal. And then, of course, shamanic healing is, I learned from Sandra Ingerman how to do soul retrievals. And that's another one. I'll do a soul retrieval and you give the person back this missing soul piece.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, if we go through any kind of trauma, we've lost a soul piece.
Yeah.
So sometimes we walk around and we feel empty. We don't feel right. People have PTSD. You do a soul retrieval, boom. A friend of mine's sister was dying, and she got to the point where she was incoherent. I mean, she was a native born in the United States, English speaker, but she'd lived in the Dominican Republic. She was now mumbling Spanish stuff no one could understand. And she was, blah, 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 she was just like that, but she was
Wow.
dying. And we knew she was dying, and her family couldn't even say goodbye. And her sister came to me and said, would you do a soul retrieval? I said, sure. So I did a soul retrieval. Boom. She was back. She was coherent. She was speaking English, and her family could say goodbye.
Wow.
Um, so, it's just those kind of tools are so powerful. That's why I do what I do.
Yeah. Um, I probably know the answer to this, but who were the greatest contributors to your character?
Well, I would have to say a lot of that is from the past lives. You
Okay.
come in with who you are. You don't come in and you're suddenly and then your life. And in fact, I had someone do a reading on me and they said, oh, your father and your brother incarnated because they wanted to be with you in this life. And I know my sister and my mother had some unfinished business, and that's why they were there. And my father and mother had stuff. But my mother and I, many lifetimes ago, we were together very, very short time. She was also my mother, and doesn't matter what happened, but I left, and that's why she was the way she was, and that's now healed. I know who she is now. She's reincarnated, and that aspect has been healed. So that's why people incarnate with each other. They have some old karma, unresolved issues, but we bring who we are in, especially if you're an old soul. You've been through a lot, through many, many lifetimes that has built your resilience, has built your determination. I'm a very determined person. Um, I used to smoke, and this guy I dated said, "Oh, it smells awful." I just quit like that. How many people can quit smoking? I've helped a lot of people quit smoking. A stressor comes along, they're smoking again. Same with drinking. I was drinking when I was married, and I took this class at work on how to recognize drugs and alcohol in the workplace. And he ended the talk with, "Here's how people become alcoholics." And he described me, and I went, "Oh God, I quit drinking like that." So that's my determination. I didn't get that in this life. I came in with it,
Wow.
and I could remember it. So um, one of the people and one of the times there's several lifetimes that were extremely significant for me. One of them was Elizabethan England. And I know there's a lot of rumors about Anne Boleyn and Elizabeth I, but actually Elizabeth I has been one of my heroes for a very long time, because this world changed dramatically because we're not all controlled by the Catholic Church. Nothing against Catholics, but the Catholic Church itself, the higher level structures, controlled by the Jesuits. It's called the Black Pope, and they're Satanists. Imagine if the whole world had been controlled by Satanists. I mean, it was, but we're now free of that. Humanity is now free. We were just freed recently, and so she was an influence on my life. She and her mother. In Egypt, some of it doesn't matter who they were, but some of the beings in Egypt, I had several lifetimes there. And one of the lifetimes that created shame for me was I was a Taoist monk in China. And we were about to be attacked, and all the monks were going to be killed. And so I stayed behind and let my friends escape. And I stayed behind. And when the enemy entered the monastery, I blew it up. So it was a suicide mission. And I felt guilt and shame that I'd killed all those people. But in this lifetime, and so every lifetime after that, I remanifested guilt and shame in every life. I did something to create guilt and shame that I'd have to get over. And in this life, one of the things that helped me get over the fact that I had this guilt and shame is I have met people who remember me from that life and are very happy and glad for me. And even though I'm a woman in this life, I was a man in that life. One of the guys, he was looking at Dancing Bear Healing Center, and he saw my picture, and he says to his wife, I know this woman. And he says, I know her from a past life. And he named the life. And it was someone I went to school with, naturopathic school. And she says, I know her. So she called me on the phone, says, you want to meet him? We met. It was like two people that hadn't seen each other since kindergarten. We had this awesome talk. But I've met other people who have come to me and said, I know you somehow. And I would do a reading and I would recognize them. So that life affected me greatly in many lives, but it helped me to overcome a lot in this life. Another life, and this is how I got the name Dancing Bear, is I'm not good at naming things. So when I wanted to start my healing center, I didn't know what to name it. And one of my power animals is the bear. And I went on this journey, and all of a sudden this bear shows up and takes me off somewhere else. And it was a running bear. And I meet this Native American up on a hill, and he said he's Running Bear. And he says, I'm Dancing Bear. Well, it turns out at first I didn't realize who he was. And I kept going back and talking to him. And then one time I went back and he was an old man and I recognized him. He was my husband in a previous life. And I was a medicine woman in that life. So that's where some of my desire to heal and help people came from, is from that life. So these things that we're interested in our life, we have a history of it in the past. And we may not remember that history. Like I couldn't for the life of me figure out why I'm such a good programmer. I can just whip stuff out. When I was in the tech industry, I just, like I said, they wanted to make me a manager right away. And people would say, Beverly, we've got this problem. And I'd walk in and they'd have something on the monitor and I'd just go, problem's right there. I wouldn't even read it. I'd just point and they go, oh yeah, you're right. I just knew stuff instantly. And I always wondered, how do I know that? Well, then I remembered my life in Atlantis. I used to program crystal. And I had a twin there. Her name was Marissa. And it turns out she is one of my spirit teachers in this life. So whatever you do that you're really good at, you probably did it in a past life. That's why you're good at it. So who influenced me? I've had many lifetimes. So probably a lot of people over the years have, and I believe in negative teachers. So sometimes you learn things. My dad was a negative teacher. Think for yourself, think for yourself, think for yourself, do what I say. You should take my word for everything. No, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I don't take anybody's word for anything.
Yeah. Sometimes you learn what not to do, and that's the best lesson.
Yeah.
Now, let's say What's your best piece of advice for someone that truly wants to better themselves or others in this life?
Meditation.
Meditation?
Get in touch with yourself. A lot of people don't understand the purpose of meditation. Sometimes people say you have to still the mind. Well, you have to stop. What people do is you'll have a thought. If you stop having thoughts, you're dead. You're always going to have thoughts. But what people do is they follow their thought. Don't follow the thought. Notice the thought. And in between thoughts is where the magic happens. But after you meditate, I tell people journal. That's where you write down what were the thoughts that came up. And I was able to change my behavior and my thinking by going, why the heck do you think like that? That is not acceptable. Or you when I was my dad was military. Every other word out of my mouth was shit. I don't know if you love swearing. And when you go to work in corporate America, some people are pretty offended when you say things like that. But they loved me, so my boss would let me get away with it.
Yeah.
But there was one woman who was constantly complaining about me because she just couldn't handle it. It's like the end of the world because she heard a dirty word. And when I was in therapy, that's when I started noticing that I didn't have to speak in a way that I didn't like. I could change the way I speak by changing the way I think. So meditation gets you in touch with your self-talk. And if you're in touch with your self-talk, you can actually eliminate needing a lot of coaches. You may still need some coaches, but coaches are helping you identify your self-talk. That's part of what they're doing. What's your story? Hypnotherapist, what's your story? We rescript your story. That's changing your thoughts. So one of the things that meditation will do, it will help you see what are your thoughts. So meditate, just let it go, then journal afterwards, and then read your journal and decide who and how do you want to be, because it's completely under your control. Trust me, I know. I've changed from an angry, overpowering, overbearing type A personality, bitch. Okay, that was me in my 20s. And if I can change, you can change. I I would make good friends angry and not know why. And I didn't have the people skills to go and ask them, why did I upset you? What happened? I didn't even know how to do that. So if I can go from 0 to maybe -10
Yeah.
to a functioning adult finally, you can too. And I did that through meditation.
Yeah, I found meditation pretty early on in life. And so I've always been doing like mudras and meditation and breathing and breath work since I was young, like teenager. And so I had that kind of out of the way, but maybe when I was, and my thing goes back to maybe 17 when my grandmother passed away. I kind of lost that, and then I went through like a very angry, irritated time frame while I was, finishing high school and getting into college. And so, it was just a very angry time that just lasted for quite some time. And then, joining the pipeline oil and gas industry and working out in the field and then working with all those guys didn't really help because they were all
Oh,
angry
yeah.
also. So, but breaking away and starting this company, 5 years ago, and a little bit before that, at the last company I was at before, I was able to, kind of start finding myself again and finding the peace, away from drinking, away from, anything, and just finding peace and love with my wife at that time. And finding that love, it probably busted open my chakra there
Yeah.
and allowed me to find that peace again
Hmm.
and give up all the alcohols and other things that were weighing me down
Hmm.
and anger, things that angered me.
Yeah.
But
Once you get past the anger, then you have to explore what are the feelings underneath it that it was hiding.
layers.
Yeah, it's peeling an onion with no center. You just keep peeling, and it's like I haven't made any progress.
Pretty much.
You still got a big onion left.
Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, so with that, I kind of left this question out, but what is your next layer to remove?
What is my next layer? Um, you know, my one of my dogs died in the middle of my summit the last week of March. She was 15. She was old. She was lost her teeth. She'd lost her hair. She was incontinent. I had to carry her around. She couldn't go for walks. I mean, she was old. The night before, I said, "Do you want me to put you down?" She said, "No." Her eyes were really bright. I said, "Do you want a treat?" She ran across the room. She took the treat. The next morning, when I got up, she died in her sleep. So it was a shock for me. But I spent all of April doing a lot of soul searching. And why was I so upset that this old dog, who, I probably should have put down, um, but just didn't want to part with her? Why did I hang on to her so long? And why was her death so important? And I realized she marked the end of an era. And then I needed to decide, what do I really want? What is my purpose going forward? Do I want to just shut down and retire and do nothing? Because I'm not earning any money right now. Not this, I mean, a little bit, but not much. Do I want to open a practice even though can't find an office? I've been searching, doing whatever for a couple of years now, can't find an office. And I realized that she represented, and why I hung on to her, she represented the end of an era. It was, my going to school and opening a practice and being successful and teaching classes and doing all of that. And I had a beautiful big house, and I had a wonderful backyard with huge gardens. And I had 3 huge indoor hydroponic gardens. And, I had everything. I was just fat, dumb, and happy, so to speak. And all of a sudden, it started with someone T-boned my car. They came out of nowhere. The car got totaled, and I couldn't replace the car, so I had to go get a different car. And then I broke my leg, and then I lost my practice, and then I had to sell my house, and I lost my house. And it's like I lost everything who I was. I had to start over. Who am I now? What do I want? What am I
Yeah.
going to be going forward? And I said, well, I really want to still do acupuncture. And then all of a sudden, I saw how to open a practice.
Yeah.
And so when I got through April, I used May. I was supposed to take April as off, because I always take the month after a summit off to rest. But I was doing this soul searching, death of the ego, all of this stuff going on. So I took the month of May off. And that's why yesterday we kind of disconnected, because I was so out of it, because I'm only just now back.
Good.
Until now, I really haven't been back. I've been in la la land,
Yeah.
meditating. I mean, I would put music on that would play for 11 hours. It'd be shamanic drumming or om chanting, and I would just sit here meditating. And 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 I'm literally just back.
That's great.
Literally, I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning. I got my whole summit website all ready to go. I sent an
Yeah.
email out to all those potential summit speakers for
Yeah.
the first time in 2 months.
Yeah.
And I realized that um, I was hanging on to the past. I was
Yeah.
hanging on to the old, and I needed to let it go and to manifest, who am I now? And what do I want to generate? And how am I going to manifest it? And I'm not going to manifest it sorry about the past and hanging on to a dog that I should have let go months earlier.
Yeah.
Um, although I loved her, she was the cutest little thing.
Yeah.
And, so cuddly. But I have another dog. He's only 3. It's not like I'm dogless. The best way to get over the loss of a dog is another dog. This is just unconditional love. They just emanate.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you would ask that, because I just went through that with the death of the dog, and realizing that I could have opened my acupuncture center here when I first moved in.
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of thinking I needed a guest room.
Yeah.
Because when people come see me, they stay somewhere else. They don't stay here because
Yeah.
there's too many of them. They won't fit in one little bed. And
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
It's a great question, and I wanted to make sure I slipped it in there. And I'm so glad that you've already peeled it, and it's already here, and you're already getting this fruit from it, right?
yeah.
Um, now, if you ever write, let's say a book or another book, what will it be about?
Well, I wrote Meditation Demystified. It was based on the workbook from classes I was teaching in the 90s. And it was based on 4 elements, because in Western culture we only think there's 4 elements. In 2019, I rewrote it with 5 elements. I'm not just a metaphysician and a spiritualist, but I'm also a scientist and a researcher. Well, science has now proven that there are 5 elements. So when you go back to Chinese medicine, there's 5 elements. If you go back to the Ayurvedic literature, there's 5 elements. It was removed from Western culture. And once you study the 5 elements and what they are and what they represent, you realize by taking that element, that's how they killed God. Aether is spirit. Aether is space. We say ether in the United States. It's really AETHER, however you want to say that. But that's our spirit. And that's how they killed God for so many people. So many people today are now atheists, and they don't realize they killed God for us by taking away the 5th element. So I wrote an ebook that I've been publishing for a couple of years now called Om for Success. And in the ebook, I talk about the Meditation Demystified is the different styles of meditation based on each element. And then the ebook is about when to use, like if you have emotional issues, which element do you want to use to heal those emotional issues? You don't know your soul purpose. What meditation do you use to find your soul purpose? So the ebook is all of that. Then I recently had someone who's read both and said, well, I want both of them together.
Yeah.
So my next book that I'm working on is putting that together with my story of how each of those elements and styles of meditation healed me and helped me in my journey, so that it's all put together. So I've got the first 3 chapters done. I've got to finish the rest.
That's awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. Um, now you probably have already seen this, but if you reorganize the words or the letters in earth, and then you get ether, it's very close, right? Have you noticed that?
Well, one of the things that I noticed I get a lot of information as downloads. And when you study Chinese medicine, sometimes you'll see the 5 elements in a circle, and sometimes you'll see earth with the 4 elements, which is the 4 directions. And earth is not aether, wood is. And I realized if you put wood in the middle and put earth on the outside and make that the 4 directions, now you have all is one is all, the space and spirit that connects everything together. So
Wow.
along the way, they've taken away our understanding of spirituality and our own ability to develop and grow spiritually.
Yeah.
A lot of people, do you believe in aliens? Can I talk about aliens?
Go ahead. I'm pretty sure that we are not the only ones
Okay.
watching this show right now.
There are a number of different types of, we'll call them people from other places. They may be from other planets, other star systems, other dimensions, other densities. Um, I am from Sirius, and we tend to be head people. We're researchers, we're scientists, we're thinkers. And there's not as many of us as there are people who say, I'm heart-centered and I want heart-centered people. You'll see it in their advertising. I help heart-centered people. I help heart-centered, whatever. These are your Pleiadians. So when you start to understand that, now you know where people are coming from and what their background is. And they're bringing that old spiritual knowledge, because we're all star seeds. We're bringing that in to humanity to help with this ascension into the Aquarian age. Of course, there's some people that say they've lied. They added 1,000 years, and it's actually only been 1,000 years since Jesus lived. And so who knows what the real cycle and timing is. But there is a massive change happening now. Some of us who are empaths feel it. I feel everything that goes on in the world. Sometimes I have to just go lay down. I just like, okay, I've got to create boundaries. And sometimes I got a message. Sometimes I'm told you need to help these people transition. So one of the things I do is I clear entities and negative beings from places, and I help people transition that shouldn't be here anymore. Because if you reincarnate and you've left something behind, you never feel complete. And if you can help the person's soul transition out, then they can feel more complete wherever they are now. So that's some of what's going. What was your question? I just went on a rant and I remember the question.
Oh my. No, I was so engaged. We were just kind of chatting right now. We were talking about the book and then we just started chatting. I was just
Oh, okay. That's the question I was answering. I don't know. But anyway, there's a lot of there's I've heard different numbers from people. I've never asked what's the number, anywhere from hundreds of thousands to over 1 million or maybe 3 million people who are star seeds. And we're here to help people wake up. And we're all at different ages. So some people like me, we've been here for a very long time. And are we running out of time?
yeah, we're down to the last 10 here.
Okay. And some people, so we have different generations, they call it Gen X, Gen Y, Gen
Yeah,
Z, the millennials, whatever. And it's each generation was preparing things for the next one so that they could help humanity with this transition. And eventually it's going to get to the 100th monkey. You know what that is, right? So eventually there will be enough people, because people are waking up now. They're starting to realize they were lied to about science, about
right.
history, about religion, about everything you can think of. You were lied to about. And history, I don't know if I said that. And they're starting to wake up, and we're here to help them to do that wake up. And then they're going to remember who they are and how powerful they are. And when that happens, the entire earth and all of humanity will just totally transform almost overnight, because we'll realize how powerful we are and how easy it is for us to manifest. And we can create a utopia, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And that would be such a great way to end this travesty that everybody's had to partake in these past few years. It's been hard on
Oh, it's
everyone.
been more than a few years. It's
Yeah.
just come to a head and it's out in the open.
Yeah.
If you go back and you watch old movies, they've been telling us all along. If you
Yeah.
look at the symbolism, I like to watch old movies and I go, oh, it's like when 9/11 happened, they said, oh, no one's ever used a plane for mass destruction. Yes, they did. There was a movie called Executive Decision in 1995.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what they did. They used a plane attempted as a weapon of mass destruction, or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
So it's all out there in the movies. They've been telling us all along, if you were awake. My grandfather was a Freemason. He quit when he realized what they were up to with his New World Order. I've known about that since the 60s.
Yeah.
So some of us have known, and we've been working on preparing
Yeah.
for when people start to wake up so we could help them.
Yeah. I imagine that's something about what I'm doing now. I didn't know that's what I'm doing, but I guess it is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Um, well, do you have a networking event, a book, product, service, invention, anything that we could help promote to the audience?
Well, I give everyone a free gift. It's called dancingbeargift.com. That's my free ebook. You can get my book on Amazon for a couple of bucks if you get the ebook. It's only a couple bucks. Authors don't make money off their books, in case you don't know that. And that would give you the what are the 5 meditation styles and how do you use them, those two together. I have a weekly podcast every Monday at 11 Pacific time. And I have a weekly live meditation on my Dancing Bear Enlightenment Academy YouTube channel. And the podcast is called Holistic Transformation. And that's live. And I have a summit twice a year. The next one's the last week of September. We'll start marketing the first week of September. So if you get my free gift, you'll be on my email list. So you'll find out when it happens, and it's free. I mean, if you want to have lifetime access, you can pay a nominal fee, but otherwise it's free. And it's international. We have international speakers, international audience. I'm going to be starting an Own for Success program. I've been selling it and teaching it for 30 years. I'm bored with it. Like I said, I'm just going to give it away for free. So I'm putting together a 30-day intensive challenge, which gets you to start meditating, start journaling, get you going. Then at the end of 30 days, there's an 1.5-hour workshop. Again, it's free. And then you'll have my 6-week course. Again, it's a master class. It's free.
Wow.
I give away all kinds of empowerments,
Wow.
but it won't have the exercises because I want to do them in person.
Yeah.
I've tried doing them online, and I use a lot of hypnotherapy, and people are laying down. I can't see them, so I don't know if they need help. So I'm going to do retreats for that, and I'm putting together a 1-year program, and I'll probably break it up into 4-month units so people don't have to spend a lot of money. And you can take 1 unit, and then when you're ready, maybe the next year you take the next unit, and then maybe a year later when you're ready, you can take the 3rd unit, because we're going to really go intense through the spiritual initiations and really how to advance spiritually. Anyway, that's my plan. I'm working on trying to get that all together for 2024. So if people get the gift, they'll be on my email list and they'll find out about it. The Own for Success website is almost done.
Keep
I
going.
have like 10 websites, so I'm busy making websites.
Well, go ahead and drop the websites, and then I'll add them to this as soon as we're done here.
Well, if you go to drbeverlylawrence.com, it will tell you all the different things I do. It will give you a page about me. It shows you all my 8 degrees and different certifications. And it will give you links to the academy. It'll give you links to the healing center. It'll give you links to the book, to the podcast, to the summit. Everything is on drbeverlylawrence.com.
Perfect.
Or you can get the dancingbeargift.com, and that'll get you to me as well.
Perfect. Well, that concludes our episode today. We thank you for coming, and I'll be glad to share this information and promote you on my channels, and add your links below to help drive you some traffic your way. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. And remember to be the light you want to see in the world.
After 40 people production.